Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. We now have 2 games in the books in the NBA Finals, and the Phoenix Suns have held home court advantage. They've won both their games at home, so they are now up 2-0 over the Milwaukee Bucks. Last night was, even though the score was relatively similar to Game 1, Sap, the way that Phoenix did it and the way that Milwaukee was able to achieve their final outcome was pretty different than from Game 1. In a lot of ways, Giannis was fantastic, and his teammates really let him down. And it was Devin Booker who really was the catalyst for Phoenix. So a little bit of a different story, but the same result at the end of the day, Sap.
Yeah, I think you see, Jet, that Phoenix is just a better constructed team. Last night, DeAndre Ayton didn't play all that well at center. He seemed to be somewhat lethargic, a little bit out of it. We saw during one timeout that head coach Monty Williams was trying to motivate DeAndre Ayton, and I love the way he did that. He said, it's not that you're playing poorly tonight. It's that you've set the bar so high that you have to go reach that bar. So let's go out and do it. I think Monty Williams, I said this months ago, should have been coach of the year. I absolutely love the guy. He's one of the reasons I'm rooting for Phoenix to recover from what happened in his life when he lost his wife several years ago in a car accident is incredible.
In that same situation, what would say Stan Van Gundy have said to
DeAndre? Man, you gotta, what are you doing out there? You gotta be, you're lazy, and then the kid would have just tuned him out. I mean, Monty Williams is just fantastic.
And I'll do what Brad Stevens would have done, just
right, yeah.
Whatever. It's just not your night, DeAndre.
Not your night,
It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, Monty Williams is inspirational, but he's not, browbeating someone. So he tried to get DeAndre Ayton going last night, who wasn't at his normal level, but Devin Booker was at Devin Booker's level as he scored 31 points, had 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Chris Paul did what Chris Paul does, 23 and 8. But I thought Milwaukee did a really good job of harassing him, especially in the first quarter. And I think maybe Chris Paul's dealing with some hand injury because his dribble didn't seem to be as effective as it's been in the past. So Milwaukee did a really good job being aggressive with him. They were aggressive in the first quarter, going to the basket. They just weren't making enough shots. When you saw the end of the first quarter, Milwaukee only up 3 after the way they played, I just felt Phoenix was going to win the game. Phoenix was hitting a lot of threes in the first quarter. They had 8 threes in the first quarter. They shot 20 of 40 for the game from 3. If you shoot 50% on 40 attempts, you're generally going to win, and that's what Phoenix did.
That's crazy.
They were sensational from 3, and they're not necessarily a great three-point shooting team, but Jay Crowder was hot from there. Devin Booker, obviously. Mikal Bridges had a great game, 27 and 7. So it seems like when a player like DeAndre Ayton's having an off night, then Mikal Bridges steps up, or Jay Crowder plays well. It's just always someone ready to step up for the Phoenix Suns. With Milwaukee, look, Giannis, what more can the guy do? He had 42 points and 12 rebounds, and his second and third best player, Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, just weren't good. They combined for 28 points, Jet, on a combined 12 of 33 shooting from the 37 shooting from the floor. 12 for 37 from the floor, 2 for 9 on threes. That's just not good. Not good at all. They have to step up and play better.
No, that was, Sap, Milwaukee was at the free throw line more. They won the turnover battle. They won the rebound battle, but they got absolutely destroyed when it came to 3-point shooting. 9 of 31 from 3, 29%. And as you mentioned, Milwaukee, 20 of 40, a nice even 50%. That's the game right there. Giannis didn't get enough help. And I hope this, I don't know if it will, Sap, but I hope it puts to bed the dumb Skip Bayless take of they're better without Giannis. I just don't see his game isn't like he has to be so dominant that nobody else can get involved. Middleton and Holiday had plenty of chances to score the basketball. They just were bricking everything in sight.
Jet, as I said last night, 12 of 37 from the floor, Middleton and Holiday combined, 2 of 9 from 3. In the first 2 games of this series, Middleton is 17 for 42, that's 40%. Holiday is 11 of 35, that's 31%. Combined, they've taken 77 shots in 2 games. That's a lot of shots. That's more than 19 shots per game per player, and they're hitting 36%. That's not good enough. The problem here is Chris Middleton. In the prior 2 series, this is kind of interesting looking back at these numbers. In the first 2 games of the last 2 series, he averaged 15 per game. In games 3 through 7, he's averaged 28 points per game. So he seems to get off to a slow start in these series in games 1 and 2. But he's not a great enough player to say, well, I'm just feeling my way out. I'm going to see what I can do to attack the team. He's not LeBron James. He's not Kevin Durant. He's not Bill Belichick. That's like something Bill Belichick does, right? In the first quarter of a Super Bowl where they kind of feel out the opponent and then they make the adjustments in the second, third, and fourth quarter. This is Chris Middleton. He's been to 2 All-Star games. And quite frankly, the 2 All-Star games he went to is because Milwaukee had the best record in the NBA those 2 years. You have to have a second player on your squad make it if you have the best record, right? Giannis is a given that he's going to make the All-Star team. So they had to put someone else on Milwaukee in the All-Star game. It was Chris Middleton. And if I hear again from Skip Bayless that Giannis is playing with 3 All-Stars, I'm going to bash my head off the window because Chris Middleton went twice again because they needed a second player in Milwaukee to make the All-Star team. Brooke Lopez has played in 1 All-Star game. That was in 2013. Drew Holiday has played in 1 All-Star game. That was also in 2013. Those 2 guys made their 1 appearance in an All-Star game before Giannis was even in the league. So he's not playing with 3 All-Stars. He's playing with 3 good players who ridiculous. Are really good sometimes and really bad other times. Drew Holiday, we both love him, love his game.
Technically 4 All-Stars, Sap. Jeff Teague is also on the team and made an All-Star.
That's right. I forgot about him. He's also an All-Star. I'm surprised Skip didn't mention that today. Here's the thing, too. Drew Holiday, as much as we love him, we love the player, right? I mean, he plays excellent defense. He's a team guy, a great character guy. Have you ever seen a really accomplished player miss that many layups? I mean, last night
he had one play. Yeah, that he just stripped the ball. I think it was from Chris Paul, streaked down the court, and just missed a layup.
He missed
He should just pull it out at this point, right? Just pull it back out to half and run a half-court offense instead of trying to get a layup.
Yeah, give Pat Connaughton a shot, who actually was probably the Bucks' second best player last night. The local guy from Arlington and Belmont, Pat Connaughton, who's a nice bench piece, but he can't be your second best player if you're in the NBA Finals. And again, there's nonsense about Giannis not being a great player or that the Bucks are better without Giannis. So far in this series, there have been 96 minutes played, and I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers here, but kind of backs up my point. He's played in all but 21 minutes, so he's played in 75 minutes. The Bucks are a +4 when he's on the floor. They're a -27 when he's on the bench. I mean, even last night, he had to go to the bench to fix his sneaker, and next thing you know, it was a 9-2 run by the Suns. So please, spare us these really hot, senseless takes that the Bucks are better without Giannis. The man won back-to-back MVPs for a reason. You take Giannis off that team, that's a 7 seed in the Eastern Conference, in my opinion. Yeah, they won 2 games over Atlanta, but Atlanta didn't have Trae Young in one of those games. He was clearly not 100% in the other game. And let's face the facts that Atlanta just got on a really nice run this year. I don't think they're a true contender. So stop with this nonsense that the Bucks aren't better with Giannis on the floor.
No, we did this a couple weeks ago, Sap, saying, his game, I think, is the most over-dissected game in the NBA. Right. And I said at the time, and I'll say it again, what else do you want the guy to freaking do? He's on a bum knee, puts up 42 points, 3 blocks, and 12 rebounds. He even hit his free throws at a decent enough clip for him last night. I just, what else are you expecting out of this guy? It's getting he's not Michael Jordan. He's not Magic Johnson. He's not Larry Bird. He's not LeBron James.
No, he's not.
He's pretty freaking damn good. And he had an excellent game last night. He was, regardless of how good Devin Booker was, Giannis was still the best player in the court last night. His teammates just sucked.
Yeah, I mean, it was 15 for 22 from the floor, 1 of 5 on threes. So he's 14 of 17 inside the 3, which would lead you to believe as Giannis stopped shooting threes. You're not really good at it.
Yeah,
but
they dare him to do it.
Open.
He needs to stop doing it.
I mean,
how many times, Sap, I was watching the game with my dad, and he's in one-on-one coverage with Ayton, and Ayton will back 5 feet off of him, and Giannis will go, okay, well, I'll just shoot a 3 here. They want him to do that. Every time they'd rather him take a 3 than drive, because if he drives, he's got a 50-50 chance of scoring and picking up a foul. If he takes a 3, he's got about a 1 in 4 chance of hitting it.
Yeah, which is still better than Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, what they've done so far in this series, shooting a combined 36%. So those 2 guys are going to have to step up. I expect they will because, again, for whatever reason, Chris Middleton in games 1 and 2 is horrible in the last 2 series. And then from games 3 on, he's a completely different player, averaging nearly twice as many points in games 3 through 7 as compared to games 1 and 2. Will that keep up? Yeah, probably. He's going back home. He's better at home than he is on the road. It just seems like Milwaukee's a step behind Phoenix. Like everything they try to do, Phoenix combats it. and then makes the proper adjustment, and then Milwaukee can't make the adjustment. All I'm saying with that is Phoenix is the better coach team. Monty Williams is a better coach than Mike Budenholzer, and that's been a factor in this series, and quite frankly, it's been a factor in the playoffs. Budenholzer, the Bucks are in the finals in spite of Budenholzer. I just think he has not availed himself very well in this postseason, but he's probably saved his job by getting to the finals.
Yeah, I mean, Sepp, you can't have Jay Crowder and Mikal Bridges outplay Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday.
Right.
You just can't. I mean, you'll never win a game. I don't care if Giannis has 60 points in that game. You just will never win if those two role players from the Suns, and I'm not trying to disparage them, but on this team, they are role players. If they outplaying the two other supposed stars of the Bucks, then you have no chance in hell of beating this team. Those guys need to step up. Middleton, I mean, maybe they should tell him he's playing the Celtics, because every time he plays against the Celtics, he puts up like 40. So, maybe they should tell him that. And Drew Holiday, again, you're right. He's missing too many layups. He still brings it defensively, and I thought he did play well defensively last night, but 7 of 21 from the floor is not going to get it done.
You make a great point, Chet. When Phoenix's 4th and 5th best players, which are Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder, outplay Milwaukee's 2nd and 3rd best player, which are Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, forget it. Giannis is going to have to put up 60, and even then that may not be enough. And he was efficient last night. Again, 15 of 22 from the floor. That's better than 67%.
Right, and you'll take the 11 of 18 from the line.
I'll take it. And I know the percentage is 63%, but at least it's 11 points. You see, sometimes if you could just work it that way. So if it's 9 possessions, 11 points, you can live with that. You prefer 15 or 16 of 18 the way Kevin Durant is, but he's not Kevin Durant. And this is the other thing. And again, I get infuriated with Skip Bayless, although I think he's great at what he does. He keeps talking about Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Well, Giannis is not those guys. He's not. No. He never will be. But you could still win a championship with Giannis. I mean, was Shaq those guys? Shaq was a 53% shooter from the free throw line. Shaq was thoroughly outplayed in the 95 finals by Hakeem Olajuwon. Shaq finally started to win titles when he had Kobe Bryant riding shotgun and then Dwayne Wade. A big guy needs help, can't do it on his own. Kareem, as great as Kareem was, he won 6 titles, 1 with Oscar Robertson, who was a little past his prime by then, but still very effective, and 5 with Magic Johnson. Big guys don't win titles on their own, with the possible exception of Bill Russell, but he also had a damn great team around him.
Yeah, everybody around him was in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, partly because of him. I mean,
that's
Sat
true.
Sanders and Casey Jones in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, I got to play with Bill Russell. We'll see some of the Patriots getting into the Hall of Fame because of Tom Brady, right? When these ultimate winners. But yeah, I mean, big guys need help. I mean, and Giannis, to me, is still a big. He's not a slasher, although he does some of that.
Look where he scores his points. They're all in the paint.
All the paint. And that's where he should. Yeah.
And for the free throw line, because he gets to the line a lot. He just doesn't hit him that often.
I've compared him to Karl Malone. And Karl Malone did get to play with John Stockton, and even he couldn't break through with a championship because he couldn't beat Michael Jordan. And, oh, by the way, in the 90s, really no one did. So, I mean, this backlash of Giannis, it's like, what more is he supposed to do? 42 and 12?
Right, that's what I keep saying, Sap. What more do you freaking want from this guy? I mean, with Ben Simmons, you get it. Like, he just melted in the playoffs. Right. But, like, Giannis, when in the games that they're losing, that the Sixers lost, you'd say, okay, well, Ben Simmons went, 4 of 20 from the free throw line here and shot the ball 0 times in the fourth quarter. I mean, Giannis had 20 points in the third quarter, Sap. I just don't know.
And 10 in the fourth.
Yeah, they lost the game. It wasn't his fault.
No. I mean, Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday were horrible. And then, as I said, Pat Connaughton was their second best player. And I love Pat Connaughton. I think he's a really good piece coming off the bench, but that's what he is. He shouldn't be your second best player. Do I think this series is over? No, because, again, I don't think the Suns are this, all-time team like, say, Golden State with Durant, Curry, Klay Thompson. So they have some of their weaknesses as well. And I think Milwaukee's competitive enough, and they have a great player in Giannis, that they'll be able to avail themselves much better once they get home. But Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday are going to have to play better, and Giannis going to have to continue to play at that level to get game 3 and make a series of this.
Yeah, I mean, and Giannis can, as long as he's healthy, because, as good as we both think DeAndre Ayton is, like, no one can cover him one-on-one. He's just too athletic and too big and too strong. So, Giannis will be able to do what he does. We highlighted this early in the postseason, Steph. I mean, he's basically the model of consistency. When he's out there, he's going to get you at least 30 and probably at least 10 or 12 rebounds. I mean, every night he's pretty much automatic for those. You can pencil that in.
He's Karl Malone. I mean, that was a great nickname, the mailman, because it seemed like every game you saw Karl Malone was 27 and 12. And now sometimes in the fourth quarter, he wasn't way more likable. I mean, you can't help but like Giannis. I mean, man, this is just a great guy. I mean,
what's up? Did you see the thing? I mean, I know you watched the game, so you did see this, but he's on the bench yelling and trying to get his teammates fired up. They're all sitting. He's standing. Budenholzer is checked out. He wants it so bad. I mean, no one. I feel bad for him because last night, I mean, it was a one-man army.
It was, and then even in the huddle, people were looking at him like, what do you want us to do? Maybe Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. Again, these guys are up and down for a reason. They're level 3 players in the NBA, right? I mean, there's only so many guys in that upper tier. I think 4 to 6 players, guys that like just bring it every night on both ends, that have championship DNA. We know who those guys are. It's LeBron, it's Durant, it's Kawhi, Steph, maybe throw a few other guys in there. Then there's a lot of really great players in level 2 that have to break through. And I think like Devin Booker is there. Chris Paul is there, although an all-time great himself. Then there's level 3 players, which Middleton and Drew Holiday are. They've gone to all-star games. Middleton twice, Drew Holiday once, Brook Lopez once. Again, Drew Holiday and Brook Lopez in 2013 before Giannis was even in the freaking league. So, they're all role players. They have to play better to help Giannis out. But I just think that Phoenix is better coached. And it just seems like there's always someone ready to step up for Phoenix. Isn't there? Like Jay Crowder had a bad game 1. On the offensive end last night, he was much better. And Mikal Bridges
all 5 starters
looked really good.
Figures.
And that's something we see with Phoenix again. They're constructed the old school way. I mean, they've got a point guard, they've got a shooting guard, they've got a center, and now you got kind of 3-and-D guys with Bridges and Jay Crowder. And Bridges is starting to remind me a little bit of Harrison Barnes when Barnes was on Golden State and they won that championship in 2015. He's kind of the forgotten
Swiss
guy.
Army knife guy.
He's a good basketball player, plain and simple. Yeah. Like he doesn't do anything great, but he does everything good enough.
Jack of all trades, master of none. Is that the old saying, Sep?
Yeah, and Jay Crowder's kind of that guy too. They just go out there and they know their roles. They're not trying to do too much. Like all of a sudden, you're not going to see Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder decide they're going to run the offense. Not when Chris Paul's on the floor or Devin Booker, who is, he's kind of like the second in command of the organization because you feel comfortable with him being the lead dog. I mean, I just get tired of the backlash at Giannis because it kind of reminds me a little bit of the backlash LeBron used to face. Like in the finals, he'd put up 51, 8 and 8, and they'd lose in overtime. It's like, well, he should have taken the last shot, or he should have done this, or he missed a free throw in the second quarter. It's like, okay, let's over dissect these guys' games to the point where, you can't like praise them. And again, it goes back to Bill Simmons. Giannis is like a 95-5 guy. Like 95% of his game is absolutely awesome. There are some holes in his game. I mean, he's not a great free throw shooter, not a great perimeter shooter. His feel for the game sometimes seems a little bit awkward. But for what he does out there, he's damn great, and he needs help.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd be foolish to say he can't be the best player on a team that wins a championship.
Sure.
I mean, he's won 2 MVPs. He clearly can. It just, he needs other guys to step up, and if they do end up losing this series, they need to try to find a way to upgrade that talent if possible.
Oof.
But it's hard. I mean, Milwaukee's a tough market. Tough. So I don't know how they do it. I mean, we said this at the beginning of the finals. I don't think either of us expect these two teams to be here next year. So this is both their best chances. Fortunately for Giannis, he's still got a lot of basketball ahead of him. Chris Paul is at the tail end of his career. He's still excellent, but Giannis is still relatively young. I think he's 27 years old.
Yeah, he's 26. He's in his 8th year. So he's still got, I think, 5 years in his prime. He relies so much on athleticism. I don't know how he's going to be into his early 30s. Not like LeBron, who does rely on athleticism, but has the IQ that's through the roof that he can still be a great player at 36, losing some of his athleticism. I don't know if Giannis can be that guy. But yeah, I mean, look at Milwaukee's situation. They've got Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton signed for several years. I think they both have 4 years at nearly max money. So they're like all in with Middleton and Drew Holiday. Where do they get anybody? They gave a ton of first-round picks to get Drew Holiday. And I'm looking at the roster and saying, imagine if Milwaukee could have went ahead and got Chris Paul. Like Chris Paul would have been the perfect fit for a bunch of teams. Like imagine if
I think a lot of people thought that Milwaukee was going to make that move for Chris Paul too.
Or if
Phoenix
Milwaukee
beat him to the punch.
Right. or if Milwaukee went on James Harden, but it was too late because they'd given all their first round picks for Holiday, a player we both love. And we love Chris Middleton. I mean, they're again, Milwaukee's an incredibly likable team. I mean, Chris Middleton is one of the smartest, more likable guys in this league, as is Drew Holiday. I mean, he's always up for like NBA Man of the Year. I mean, no one's saying that, but when it gets out onto the court, at some point you say, look, this is a guy we, like to hang out with or have our cousin marry or whatever. But on the basketball court, you've got to be kind of that cold-blooded killer, and they're not at that level. So you ask them to do more than they're really equipped to handle.
Yeah, no, I think they've done about the best job they could possibly do in terms of building this team. I mean, maybe you can look and say, well, they're all constantly drafting late in the draft, so maybe there was a draft pick that they could have gotten the hit on somebody that somebody else did. But that's, you're kind of shooting darts blindfolded there. I don't begrudge them that Drew Holiday trade at all because the James Harden thing happened after that. So had they known Harden was on the market at the same time, maybe you could say, well, why did they choose, Drew Holiday over James Harden? That's foolish. But, it happened before, so you can't really ding them for that. I think this is about as good as they could get it. Maybe personally, I would have moved on from Middleton and kept Brogdon. I think Brogdon is a reasonable facsimile for less money. So maybe that would have allowed you to bring in another player, and it would have been better because you have Brogdon plus the other guy. I mean, Middleton is a better player than Brogdon, but I don't think by that much, considering their salary differences. So you can nitpick here and there, but I really do think this is about as good as they can build a team because it's just not a free agent destination at all. And they've had no high picks to work with.
No, and they kind of screwed up in the offseason. Didn't they have Bogdanovich pretty much ready to go and they blew it?
Yeah, there was some sort of contract thing that they got docked for tampering too. Yeah, they blew that because the timing was off.
That would have been a nice piece on this team.
Yeah, that would have been a really nice
perimeter shooter. Yeah, because that would have helped Giannis spread the floor a little bit more. Look, they're still in this series. They're down 2-0, and it doesn't happen often in the finals when a team gets down 2-0 that they come back to win the series. I don't think it's going to happen here. But obviously, these games are so spread out. Man, I mean, Game 3 is Sunday. Game 4 is Wednesday. So Giannis is only going to get healthier. He's still going to be the most dominant guy on the court. Comes up if Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday can step up and be very good. They don't even have to be great. Just be very good to give Giannis a hand. And then you see what happens with the Phoenix players. I mean, I think Devin Booker started to feel himself a little bit last night. He got hit again by Drew Holiday. It seemed like after that, he shot better. Like it's almost
maybe. But yeah, I feel bad for him. Since he's broken the nose, he has got hit in the nose again a couple of times. I mean, his nose is going to be all sorts of messed up.
He's still a good-looking dude, though.
He's a handsome guy, but maybe he's going to need some. Kyrie Irving can recommend him a rhinoplasty doctor or something after the season.
I've developed a man crush on that guy. Also because the way he handles himself and everything you read, he's just a really good kid. He's an old soul. You see the cars he shows up with, the way he dresses. Yeah. He almost has the feel of an NFL quarterback. That's why I like Jalen Suggs so much coming out of Gonzaga. They feel like NFL quarterbacks. Like they
Jalen
command
Suggs
the room.
Was a high school
he was a great quarterback, and I bet Devin Booker, if he so chose, would have been a hell of a high school quarterback as well. I mean, they carry themselves in a very mature manner. Like Devin Booker's 24, he feels 34. Like he's got that deep voice. He's very measured. I love the kid.
I also think part of it's the influence of Chris Paul. I mean,
absolutely
teaching them how to be professionals.
Yep, and how to play have some dirty moves out there, which is okay, because Chris Paul will play dirty from time to time. I think Chris Paul has a screw loose. At some point, it almost feels like he's apt to. That's why he and Rondo had such great matchups, because I think he got two crazy competitors. Yeah, exactly. Who just would literally punch you in the nuts if it meant winning. Which you want guys like that on your team because you need that edge.
Which is funny because Chris Paul, I know, is really close with LeBron James, but their personalities are not similar.
No, LeBron's very passive aggressive, and LeBron's never been a dirty player. I mean, if anything, he doesn't want to hurt anybody. He's some of the same things with LeBron is like with Will Chamberlain, where they were just so physically better than everybody.
Yeah, when you're bigger, stronger, faster than
you almost don't want to hurt anybody. It's almost like a giant bear that's playing with a a smaller animal inadvertently hurts them because he's just so much bigger and stronger. So yeah, maybe that's why they get along though. Opposites attract, and Chris Paul sometimes is like that bantam rooster. And I'm watching him walking around the court, and a week ago or 2 weeks ago, they had Dustin Pedroia night at Fenway Park.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of Pedroia, or Pedroia reminds me of him, like the smallest guy, very, in your face, tough, competitive. And I'm like, geez, these guys kind of remind me of each other. Like, and they have to play that way because
I really have
much
developed
smaller.
A liking for Chris Paul.
Oh yeah, me too.
And I did like Dustin Pedroia for a while until I started working in the media and sort of realized how he was treating other people who weren't baseball, who weren't baseball players. I mean, he just struck me as a dick. I don't know. Chris Paul seems pretty good with the media for the most part. Yeah. I know it's different in the NBA versus the MLB, and it's different.
Baseball players suck in general with the media. Yeah, I mean, if you're a Red Sox, you inadvertently, become a dickhead to the media.
Really, I mean, he did become such a dickhead.
Oh, yeah, and a lot of that fake intensity. Like I always used to laugh that the ball would be by him and then he'd dive and get his uniform dirty. Like me, I like smooth. Like Barry Bonds.
But
was
no,
like
I get what you're saying, Sap. In terms of the small guy who's super competitive. Maybe they achieve more than what their stature would indicate.
Well, they had to be right. Yeah, I mean, Chris Paul's is he 5'11"? I mean,
probably.
He's 5'11", right? I mean, he's smaller than Isaiah Thomas. Not the
he's
one.
He's never been ripped or anything like that.
He's kind of got a dad bod, doesn't he? He's got like a little bit of a gut. I know he's changed his diet, but he's out there on skill and smarts and obviously athletic ability. You're not becoming an all-time great point guard in the NBA with all great athletic ability, but kind of like Pedroia, they kind of got that little edge to them, and I'm rooting for him because I think he's a great player. And I like those types of players in terms of how smart he is on the court. I mean, his IQ is through the roof. He's been the president of the Players Union for 8 years? That's a pretty long term. I mean, that's as long as Obama was president.
Very good at it. Yeah,
he's great at it. Yeah, and I think when he retires, he's going to be a general manager, coach. I don't know if he has quite the money to maybe be a part owner. Who knows? You never know if some of the players decide to get together and buy a franchise. I know you've talked about that Portland is probably the best place for an ex-player or ex-players to look at because of the situation there. Who knows? Maybe LeBron, and a few other guys end up buying a franchise.
A Jordan Brand guy. He's got ties to Beaverton, Oregon. So I mean, maybe they band together. I mean, LeBron doesn't need all that much help financially, but maybe that's a possibility. Sap, one last note on Mikal Bridges, because we were talking about him too. I forgot, and I was remembering this during the game last night. Do you remember the Sixers drafted him? He went to Villanova, grew up a Sixers fan. Mom works for the team, and they traded him on draft night. How much do you think the Sixers are regretting that now?
Man, the Sixers are regretting a lot of things right now, aren't they? I mean, Mikal Bridges would be the perfect guy on that team, right? Can hit threes, defends. Kind of like a younger, better version of Danny Green. And I think
between that and the Fultz pick where they gave up Tatum, it's like, what are they doing?
I mean, imagine them with Tatum, Simmons, and Embiid and Mikal Bridges. If they just stuck with who they drafted or just drafted the right guy, man, they would have been unbeatable. I mean, pretty damn good right now. Yeah, because you get Tatum. Could you picture Tatum and Ben Simmons on the floor together? First of all, they're both so freaking long and athletic, and one guy is such a great scorer, and the other guy's a great facilitator. And then you throw Embiid into it, although Embiid started to piss me off as much as I love him at the end of that Atlanta series. I mean, you can't throw your teammates under the bus. You just can't. And you also got to work harder to stay healthy. You can't be flopping all over the floor and coming out with the statement that I really want to be a guard when you're 7'1" and have a skill set that's, one of the 3 or 4 best in the history of the league among big men. Seriously, I mean, on one hand, I could probably name guys that have a better skill set than Joel Embiid as big men, if I can go that far. Obviously, like Russell, Chamberlain, and Jabbar, let's just put them aside. But, he's got a better skill set than Moses Malone had. But Moses Malone just worked his ass off so hard that he won 3 MVPs.
He can shoot threes and put the ball on the floor. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he's at the Olajuwon level, right? I mean, as far as skill. I mean, I think if Olajuwon was playing today, he would have been a good 3-point shooter. Like, I think that we would have figured out how to do that because he's like Jordan, Kobe. If they were playing today, would have shot more threes and been great at it. Because I think if you're like an 85% free throw shooter, you probably can extend it out another 7 feet and be pretty damn good shooting threes. So, yeah, but that Philadelphia franchise, yeah, I mean, Mikal Bridges would be like I said, a younger, better version of Danny Green, because he kind of just blends in and does what's necessary. And he's got that championship DNA with Villanova. I know you don't normally carry over winning in college to winning in the pros, but I don't think it hurts.
But I mean,
Right?
geez, he grew up there, and his mom worked for the freaking team, and they traded
yeah.
away on draft
I mean,
night. Sap. I mean,
how many more signals do you need?
Yeah, I don't know. I do think it's fair to bash Embiid for the being in shape, but I saw this. I'm glad you mentioned that, Sap. Your guy, Shannon Sharp, was criticizing Giannis for not being in good enough shape. Is Shannon Sharp on drugs? Giannis is in phenomenal.
Okay, there's a difference though, Jet. There's a difference between, I mean, Giannis looks incredible. Like Giannis to me is a big version of Russell Westbrook. Like he may have like the best body in the NBA. I'm sounding, like I'm falling in love with guys between Devin Booker's looks and Giannis's body, but so be it. Giannis has a phenomenal body. He's 6'11", 250 muscle and everything, but his cardio may not be quite there. I think what happened with Giannis is he normally doesn't play more than 32 or 33 minutes a game throughout the season. So maybe when you ramp it up in the postseason, the cardio is not where it should be. And let's not forget, the guy was hurt. Like
right.
He was out
I just
for
don't know
7 to 10 days.
What Shannon was talking about. He played 40 minutes last night. Sap.
Yeah, and he's played 75 minutes in these games. Yeah, he's like I said, 75 minutes he's played in this series. When he's on the court, Milwaukee's +4. The 21 minutes he's not on the floor, they're -27. That should put to bed the notion that the Bucks are better without Giannis. And again, I'm not a huge plus-minus guy, but that's pretty pronounced. Shannon, I love Shannon and Skip. They're entertaining to watch, but that's what they are there for, to be entertaining. So they're going to say some crazy things. I mean, Skip thought that Tom Brady golfed better than Aaron Rodgers during the match a few days ago, which
he was never going to say anything otherwise.
No, Aaron Rodgers Aaron Rodgers outplayed Phil Mickelson and Bryson DeChambeau, not just Brady. He was the best golfer of the four. And of course, Skip, will bring up the NFC Championship game when he missed a pass early in the fourth quarter. That's what Skip does. But hey, he makes $8 million a year, which is almost what Maria Taylor apparently is looking for at ESPN. So that's going to be an interesting story, Jack, because her contract runs out before the finals is over.
Yeah.
So they're going to pay her per diem?
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do there. I would think that it would be mutually beneficial to just say, we'll extend out whatever the pro rata is over the rest of the finals and then, pick it up from there. Because I don't think it helps. It doesn't help them to have her just leave in the middle of the finals. It certainly doesn't help her to leave in the middle of the finals. So maybe they come to some sort of agreement, but she's asking for what Stephen A is making, then she's insane. I mean, she does crazy. A great job, but that's no one's tuning in to watch her. Period. No one is, and that's not a knock on her. That's the case with 99.9% of people who host on ESPN or Fox. There's only like a very small amount of people who someone says, "Oh, this person is on talking about sports. I'm going to listen to them." That's why they make so much more money than everybody else.
It's Stephen A. Smith, right? It's Skip. It's Coward. Those are opinion people. She's a host. She's damn good at it. But yeah, I mean, are you watching the TNT basketball pregame and postgame show for Ernie Johnson? And I love Ernie Johnson. He's the perfect guy with those guys. No, you're watching it to hear Charles Barkley, Shaq, and Kenny Smith. So yeah,
and, I mean, if you're really aware, Ernie Johnson, believe me, knows that.
Oh God, he accepts
it. He asking for more money than
them. No. I mean, Stephen A. Smith is the number one guy at ESPN. And deservedly so. I think he's fantastic. First of all, I don't know of anybody that works harder than Stephen A. Smith. Like he's always on. He's on radio. He's on TV. He's on an app. I mean, he's the hardest working man in sports media.
Shows on vacation from his
he's
cell
awesome.
phone.
I love Stephen A. Smith. He's a fellow Aaron Rodgers sycophant, so that's why we probably would hit it off. But no, he's great, and Greeny's great at what he does on Get Up, and Van Pelt on SportsCenter. Those are the three marquee guys. For a while, Tirico was there when he was doing Monday Night Football, but he's no longer there. And Gruden, who I thought was way overrated as an analyst, was also a big part of the network, making a lot of money. And Maria Taylor's great. They offered her $5 million a year and she refused it. Now it's down to $3 million a year. So I think she's overvalued her worth, or her agent has. I know that she's got plenty of options, maybe with NBC or with any other network. She's fantastic. I think
other options is great, but no one's going to pay her $8 million.
No, take the $5 million you were offered last year while ESPN was cutting salaries. Like,
Yeah,
that's a whole other story. But it would be kind of who they're going to have hosted. Would they bring Rachel Nichols back to host?
That would not be a good look.
No, that would not be good. I mean,
Perk.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
Did you see him out there with the makeup artist? Because he's in Arizona. It's hot. He's sweating through his makeup.
Poor Perk. Perk's got to go with the shorts and then above with the shirt, tie, and sport coat. Go for that. Perk's. You know what? I don't know if you've seen when Perk stands. Like, he's always sitting in that throne, which is awesome. I saw him on SportsCenter. He was standing, and he looked so uncomfortable when he was standing. Again, he's a tall guy, so he probably didn't want to look even taller. And the suit was kind of awkward on him. When he sits, he's got a commanding presence. Maybe he's better off with that. But I love Perk. Perk is fantastic. Yeah. One of my favorites.
So Sap, I know you ran a poll earlier in the week. I think it was a couple of days ago. Now that Chris Paul is in the finals and on the precipice of winning a championship, who now takes that mantle as the best player to never reach the NBA finals? Not necessarily not win a ring, because that's a whole different debate, but to not make the finals. So who did you have on your? I know you can only do 4, which you've lamented for a long time. But who was your 4 people on your poll?
Well, I wish I did it over, because I kind of left one guy off that probably should have been on there. But I had Steve Nash, Carmelo Anthony, Bob Lanier, who was arguably the second or third best center of the 70s. It was Kareem was the best center of the 70s, and it was either Lanier and then Dave Cowens. And then Moses Malone came along later in the 70s into the 80s. And I also put George Gervin on there, multiple scoring titles, all-time great player. None of those guys ever made it to the finals. I probably should have found a way to put Dominique Wilkins in there. He's I think a top 15 scorer. Dominique never even played in the conference finals. Like Lanier, Anthony, Nash, and Gervin did make it to the conference finals. Vince Carter, Sidney Moncrief, Chris Webber, my guy Marcus Johnson, who I think belongs in the Hall of Fame. A lot of players never got the chance to play in the finals. I mean, I think the easy answer is name the greatest player to never win a championship. To me, it's Elgin Baylor, who I have as the 11th greatest player ever. And he's the highest rated player on my top 50 list that doesn't have a championship. He technically was on the 71-72 Lakers, but he got hurt early in the season, didn't play.
Right.
I think it's Steve Nash, only because he's won 2 MVPs.
Yeah, those are kind of garbagey MVPs.
I know. It's because really he won 2 MVPs playing pretty much the same way that Chris Paul played this year. Right. I mean, Chris Paul's in the finals. And Steve Nash didn't make it to the finals. And I get it's a regular season award. Yeah, he probably shouldn't have won both. Maybe should have won one, but Shaq should have won one of those. And I think either Kobe or LeBron should have won the other.
I think
Kobe. Yeah, Kobe should have 2.
One of those seasons, I think, was the one that Kobe had the 81-point game and led the league in scoring by like 8 points a game.
He averaged 35.6 points per game at a time when no one was scoring. If someone scored 35 a game now, he probably should have won. I mean, look, all these great players should have more MVPs than they have. Like LeBron
Kobe and Shaq have one each. Steve Nash has 2. I mean, come on.
Well, that's like why on one of the debate shows today goes, Devin Booker going to win an MVP? I go, he's probably good enough to, but do you realize how difficult it is to win an MVP?
He won't.
I mean, because there's Luka's in the league and is younger, right? Like, we think Luka's better than Devin Booker. As much as I have a man crush on Devin Booker, I'm kind of a man crush on Luka too. Good looking dude.
A lot of it seemed to be double doubles and triple doubles seem to be weighed highly into this. Yep. And Devin Booker is never going to be a 10 rebounder, 10 assist type of guy. No. I mean, Nash was averaging a double double with that sort of stuff. Luka, man, could average a triple double. Harden won his MVP, averaging close to a triple double. We know that Westbrook won his MVP with a triple double. LeBron's always close there. So you need to be good at more than just scoring. You can't just be an unbelievable scorer. Right. Now, I mean, Kobe was obviously his best skill was scoring, but he was, great at other things as well too. So
he was also first team. Yeah, he was first team all defense the year. Yeah. So I love Booker again, but Chris Paul's never won an MVP. Finished 5th this year, which
it's not easy.
It's not easy. It's like, go to baseball. Manny Ramirez never won an MVP. All-time great hitter. David Ortiz never won an MVP. Freaking Ken Griffey Jr. won 1. Yeah. All-time great player. It's not easy to win MVPs because there's only 1. In baseball, there's 2, 1 in each league. But in basketball, there's 1. Kevin Durant's won 1 MVP. Like, do we think that Devin Booker is going to equal Kevin Durant? I don't think so. And again, I love Booker. I do it. The comparison with the Kobe kind of drives me a little crazy because I think the comparison is Ray Allen. He's
agree,
not quite the deep shooter that Ray Allen is, but Ray Allen scored a lot of points in mid-range, and he had that impeccable jump shot, right? It was like textbook. Like, he could stop on a dime and just rise up, and it was nothing but net from 12, 15, 16 feet. That's who he reminds me of. Moves so well without the ball, like a real serious player.
Yeah,
like,
if we're going to start comparing Booker to Kobe, then Booker has to, be able to be the one guy on the team and bringing them to, to glory or at least competitive. I mean, he never made the playoffs until this season. I'm not trying to take away from him, but that's the case. Kobe was, for a couple seasons, the best player in the NBA.
Yeah.
And Booker isn't even the best player on his team.
No. And again, I love him, but let's not go there. And I mean, I think it's a fair comparison to say Giannis is Karl Malone, like the numbers and somewhat holes in their games, and can they break through? And I mean, as much as I dislike Karl Malone personally and professionally, I think he's an incredibly overrated player. But he did make it to the finals and then ran into Michael Jordan. Good luck with that. So, but that's more an apt comparison. Or the one I always go with is Chris Paul and Isaiah Thomas. I think there's so much alike. I think Isaiah Thomas was slightly more explosive scorer than Chris Paul. I think Chris Paul's a slightly better defender, but they're very similar as players. But Booker, as much as I love him, and I know that Kobe loved Booker and loved Tatum, those were his two guys. They're not Kobe Bryant. They don't have the skill set, or they don't have that incredible desire, that competitiveness.
I know you don't want to say Mamba mentality, Sap.
I'm not going to say Mamba mentality. And you know what? It leads us to, I know, our next conversation, which is going to be about Jason Tatum. And I saw an interview with him because he's, going to be playing in the Olympics. Man, is he the least inspiring guy on the microphone we've ever heard?
He's shy.
My Lord. I mean, he could tell you that a building was on fire and I wouldn't escape it because I wouldn't believe it, or it just wouldn't resonate. He is laid back.
Well, he's still finding his own as a personality. He's very chill. True. Very good.
But another good looking guy. All these great NBA guys are good looking dudes. It might have something to do, like the quarterbacks. Like all the quarterbacks are good looking. Is Colin Cowherd?
It's a confidence thing.
Of course it is. On the playground.
Why Zaza Pachulia was never the best player in the NBA. Seth.
Or Dario Saric. This never happened.
What's interesting about this list of guys that never make that have never made the finals, I should say, is that what it shows me is that most great players do eventually get there and get a crack at it, but you better take advantage of it when you're there, because you don't get multiple cracks at it. You usually get a crack, maybe two, because if you look at the list, I mean, those are great players, Sap, that you've mentioned, but there's a lot of great players who have never won a finals who had a chance at it and just never were able to, win the whole thing. So, if you're a young star right now and you're struggling, history would show that there's a good chance at some point in your career, if you're really good, you will at least get there once. But just like this series is showing, Sap, it might just be the once.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as great as Giannis is, right, I don't think the Bucks are going to be as good as the Nets or the Sixers next year. If the Sixers get their act together, if the Nets stay healthy, I think those are two better teams than the Bucks. This is the Bucks' opportunity. Look at the Bucks roster. Other than Giannis, it's an old roster. Like, is Middleton and Drew Holiday going to get better next year, or are they going to just be older and not as good? You see what I'm saying? And I'll go back to football. My guy, Aaron Rodgers, in his third year as a starter, got to the Super Bowl and won, hasn't been back since. Like, when he won that first Super Bowl, I'm like, he's going to go back several times and win 2 or 3 and, measure up. And as great as he's been, I mean, he's won 3 MVPs since he won a Super Bowl. He hasn't been able to get back. So you're right. I think you get spoiled. Imagine being like even older than me, which is pretty tough to comprehend. But imagine being a Celtics fan growing up in the 50s and 60s. They went to the finals every year but one with Russell.
That's Sap. It's been my life as a Patriots fan for I'm 32, but for most of my high school and college days and after, it was every other year they were in the Super Bowl.
Or at least in the AFC Championship game. So you just wake me up AFC Championship Day Sunday, and I'll tune in to see the Patriots playing Denver, Baltimore, Indiana, whoever, and that's when the season starts. Yeah, now as a LeBron guy, the guy's been to 10 finals, so I've enjoyed it's been to 10 of the last 12 finals. That's pretty damn impressive.
But right, if you're Devin Booker right now, I think you realistically, he's young and he's probably like, I'll be here again. You very well may not. You get a crack at it. Most of these guys do not get multiple chances at it unless you're LeBron. I mean,
right.
That's just, but that comes around once every 50 years or so.
Yep. So that's Michael Jordan, Bill Russell, Magic, Bird. Yeah, the guys that they're the all-time greats. They're right. They're unicorns. So if you're Devin Booker, this is your opportunity. And I think before the series, I think he's going to win the MVP. It's probably right now going to be either he or Chris Paul. And I'm sure Chris Paul will probably get it if they both play equally well. The sentimental vote will go to Chris Paul, and I'm fine with that. But again, I don't want to give away MVPs yet. It's still 2-0 and Milwaukee's quite capable of making a series of this. The only thing is they did it against Brooklyn, but Harden got hurt in game 1, and then Kyrie got hurt in game 4, and then it came down to, can Kevin Durant carry a team, past another team by himself, and he came within an inch of doing that. So I wouldn't count the Bucks out yet, but they're going to have to come up big on Sunday night in game 3.
Yeah, absolutely, Sap. I'm curious, who would you have voted for on this list?
Steve Nash. It would be Steve Nash because of the two MVPs.
Yeah, you did say that. Sorry.
It's that, but the more I look at it, George Gervin was incredible. Incredible scorer, but he was playing on the Spurs when the Lakers dominated the West. Carmelo, I think Carmelo's slightly overrated as a player. I think Paul Pierce and Carmelo Anthony are probably pretty equal as players. Pierce does have the championship, the finals MVP.
Better.
You think he's better? I think it's a fair argument. Better defensively.
Carmelo was a sieve his whole career defensively, Sap. Never even attempted to try to play defense.
No, always looked out of shape, which Paul Pierce also looked out of shape from time to time, but he could get away with it because he played an old man's game. I loved Bob Lanier. He was just, he was the president of the Players Association back in his day, but he couldn't quite break through. Dominique was a guy who, Dominique and Carmelo Anthony, I kind of put together. I think they're both somewhat overrated as players, but nonetheless great players. Vince Carter's even a level below those guys. It would probably be Nash. It might even be George Gervin, though. George Gervin was constantly first team All-NBA, winning scoring titles. You can make a case. He's another guy that for some reason gets forgotten somewhat, because it was from a different era.
ABA expansion team, basically. On
a
Spurs team before they were the Spurs.
Yeah, and then with the Spurs, they were damn good. He had Artis Gilmore as a center, and they couldn't beat the Lakers in the West because really no one could beat the Lakers except Houston did twice in the 80s.
Sap, that's the Spurs players' lot in life. You get forgotten about. If as great as Tim Duncan is, he constantly gets forgotten about. If you play for the Spurs, you get forgotten about, even though they've, are one of the most. I think they are actually the most successful franchise winning percentage-wise in the history of the NBA because they're a
probably
newer,
yeah. Oh yeah,
they have an insane winning percentage.
Yeah,
but I think it's an interesting discussion, especially because this year, probably the two best guys who've never made the finals happen to do it in the same year.
Yeah, that's why I thought it'd be a pretty good poll.
Yeah,
because I think Chris Paul's better than any of these guys, and I think Giannis will be better than these. I think Giannis in 5 years, without question, let him still play out a little bit. He's better than Carmelo Anthony. He's better than Dominique. He's better than Chris Webber. He's won 2 MVPs. He's been a defensive player of the year. He's better.
More than so already have.
These are the two guys. So now it's left to who I'd say Nash, but don't discount George Gervin because he was damn great.
Yeah, and I know people are going to start. He's not there yet, but people are going to start talking about Paul George the more he doesn't make the playoffs. I'm assuming.
Yep. No, yeah, because I think, and you saw how good he can be.
He's probably the best active player, right? Who's never made it in terms of what he's accomplished so far. I'm not saying. I think that guys like Tatum could get better than him, but
right. But as far as like someone who's played, like even Jimmy Butler made the final. So yeah, I would say that Paul George is probably the best guy that hasn't made. He's constantly, first or second or third team All NBA, All Defensive NBA, third in the MVP voting a couple of years ago. Yeah, I think you make the case now that he's the best player that hasn't played in the finals. And look, he played really well in the postseason this year. I know he missed big free throws and all of that stuff, but in totality, macro, he was pretty damn good. Yeah.
I do want to talk about Jason Tatum, Sap, but I feel like we should do that save that for another show. Are you okay with that?
Good idea. Yeah. Because that's a whole, maybe again, to use the word macro for the second time in like 12 seconds. Yeah. More of a look at the Celtics. And maybe we'll do a a Celtics podcast,
Yeah, and I
in the
think
very near future. Yeah.
also this summer, I think we'll spend time talking about Team USA basketball
Yep.
because we'll
Yep.
have that covered for everybody. And I always
Cool.
like watching the Olympic basketball too because there's some different rules. Obviously, Team USA is expected to blow the doors off of everybody else, but there's some damn good international teams out there too. So we'll talk about that and the
Yep.
Celtics connection and the Bradley Beal, Jason Tatum stuff as the Olympics approach. But we will be back to recap game 3 in Milwaukee. That game is on Sunday, so pretty spread out. So we'll be back to recap it on Monday. Sap, do you want to give a quick prediction for that game?
Yeah, I think Milwaukee will win, and they'll cover. They're a 4.5-point favorite right now. I think they'll come up big. The crowd will get them playing at a higher level, and I think that Middleton and Drew Holiday will be that much better in that game, and I think Giannis will continue to be what Giannis is, and I think they'll be able to win. They've been very difficult to beat in Milwaukee. I mean, they lost one game to Atlanta, and other than that, they've been pretty damn good at home. I think they'll win, by 8 to 12 points and get this back to somewhat of a series.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and credit to the fans of the Suns and the Bucks who have been incredible throughout the postseason, and I think have really given each of their respective teams a lift. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was deafening last night during the
Oh
broadcast
yeah.
in Phoenix, and you see how into it the Bucks fans are with the whole Bucks Plaza or whatever the hell they got going on there, and
Yep.
then there's fans inside the Fiserv Forum as well. So yeah, I think the crowd will give them a lift and help those guys, like you said, the C-level stars and in Middleton and Holiday and Giannis, you can pencil in, like we always say, for 30 plus and 12 plus. And I also think that, there is, when you're up 2-0, there is a natural inclination that's hard to fight to take your foot off the gas pedal a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. Now, maybe
Yep.
Chris Paul will help motivate them to not do that, but Booker and Nathan are still very young players, and this is still their first postseason. And I know they've been incredible, but it's hard to be motivated for every game. And when you have that 2-0 cushion, it's hard to get yourself as motivated as those 2 games with the home crowd, and you
Yep.
need to seize the lead. So I think Milwaukee will win by a pretty comfortable margin. I totally agree with you there, Sap. So we'll see if they actually make us look smart or make us look dumb when we are back on Monday for a new edition of the
Mm-hmm.
podcast. We are the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. We are presented by Full Press Coverage. Make sure you check out their website, Full Press Coverage, for this and other great podcasts, lots of articles and content. And make sure you check out our Twitters for all the latest on the show and awesome polls from Sap, because he does have some good polls from time to time, at John Sap25 or at Jet Stryer. JETSTRIAR. You can also find our YouTube at youtube.com/JetStryer. And the podcast is wherever podcasts are found. So we will be back on Monday, and we'll talk to you then, everybody. See ya.